Hi, I'm Rahul Neelmani, Vice President, Community Engagement and Editorial for ISMG. Today, I have the honor of having Anand Ishwaran, Global CEO for Veeam Software, and also a member of the company's board of directors. Anand joined Veeam last year after a successful tenure at Ring Central, where he was the president and COO. And today, we're going to discuss the crucial aspect of data management and backups in the wake of ever-increasing ransomware and cyber attacks. Welcome, Anand. It's a pleasure to have you in our studio today.
Pleasure is all mine, Rahul. Look forward to the conversation.
So, Anand, to begin with, tell us about yourself and your time at Veeam so far since you joined the company last year.
I joined the company in the first week of January. So it's coming close to 8 months now, and it's been a fascinating time. Fascinating because I think one of the things we've always talked about is digital transformation, probably the most overused word in the industry today. But one of the key underlying tenets of digital transformation is the fact that data is the currency which fuels every business model as they look to transform. And it doesn't matter which industry you're in, healthcare, banking, it doesn't matter. Pick your favorite, even the most regulated of industries are transforming with data as the foundation. And every company is, sort of becoming a technology company. And the interesting part is, while people think about transformation, people are not thinking about the underlying need to protect the data, which is probably the most important asset for every business right now, in the same way, with the same sense of urgency. And so for me, coming into Veeam, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've been on the other side, working with companies as a partner of their digital transformations. Now coming here, I recognize the gap which exists with how important data is and how less the proactive sense of urgency is to actually protect that data meaningfully. And so that's been the journey of 8 months in, thinking through how we partner with companies better to protect their data. That's one side of things. And secondly, making sure that our innovation, which I do feel is best in class in the industry, the pace of innovation, the velocity of innovation. Three, which is the most interesting thing, which is at some point we talk about protecting data, we talk about backup and recovery. But what is it that really matters? What really matters is the recovery part of it. Backup is just a means to the end. But the key is, how do you help companies recover their data and give them confidence that they will lose no time and they will lose no data and be able to run their business, with absolutely zero downtime, giving them that confidence that the recovery part of it is probably more important than even the backup part of it. But if you also take a step back, data loss can happen for a variety of reasons. It could be as simple as there's a geo disaster. There's a big earthquake which takes out data centers. And, that could be a reason if you don't have the right high availability architecture for your data. Or it could be just data corruption. Or it could be just malicious actors or bad actors within the company. And so it happen for a variety of reasons. And so the ability to recover that data, regardless of reason, instantly with no time loss and no data loss is key. And that's the journey we are on in Veeam to help our 450,000 customers.
In today's context where ransomware is inevitable and the threat actors are trying to first bring the backup systems under control before attacking the production data, the false sense of security that prevails among enterprises. How has this altered the recovery capabilities of the businesses?
No, it has. And what you said is absolutely right. We probably do the most comprehensive research in the industry on, how our companies approaching, what are their strategies for backup and recovery and for data protection. And our research tells us that 94% of the companies actually, have had an incidence of ransomware attack. Our research tells us that 84% of the instances they've had an attack, the first target is the backup repositories. Our data also tells us that almost 40+% of the time, these companies end up having to pay money to recover their data, and a significant percent of the time, even after they pay the money, sometimes they're not able to recover the data. So how your backup strategy is super critical. And, gone are the days where you just say, hey, I'm just going to back it up. It's a horizontal backup. With the diversity of workloads we have across your infrastructure, you have SaaS applications, you have, container environments, Kubernetes or whatever you use for that. You use public clouds, you use virtual environments. You have a multi-cloud strategy. Often, most companies, especially as upper end of mid-market to enterprise, they use more than one cloud, and that's the right thing to do. And so you need to have a backup strategy which is representative of your environment, which is usually a multi-hybrid cloud, sort of infrastructure with, physical virtual environments, Kubernetes for the DevOps teams, and truly think of your backup strategy as a super critical element of what you need to do. If you do that right, backup is your first and in some instances last line of defense. And so that becomes super critical. And I actually find that companies don't have the same urgency or the same diligence on creating the right strategy for how you back up. And as I said earlier, more importantly, how. But the key is the strategy which needs to be put in place for your data across different workloads and across different environments is super critical. Not enough companies are.
In case of a successful ransomware attack, while data restoration from the backup can happen within days, however, it takes much longer, sometimes even months, for an organization to come out of it entirely. This is a direct loss to the business. Would you explain the entire process or the journey from partial recovery to full recovery, and where does the challenge lie for enterprises?
I think it comes down to, what is the strategy you put in place across the entire infrastructure for protecting your data? I mean, this is in some ways the last conversation or the last question we talked about. You've got to truly take a step back and understand your entire environment and have a plan for how are you backing up. We talk about 32110, 3 copies of data, 2 different sites. And so do you have a plan for your data across this entire spectrum, across the 32110 strategy? Most companies don't. And that's the first place. The second one is the technology behind the solutions you use. For example, Veeam was the first company which came out with the innovation, instant recovery, which is the ability to instantly replicate your environment back to what it was. And if you plan for an RPO of 15 minutes, an RTO of 15 minutes, you can literally instantly replicate your environments, not for hours, which is what would happen if you have your backup stored offline with no plan to actually recover it. But if you have an RPO plan of 15 minutes, then Veeam's innovation of instant recovery would allow you to replicate and instantly recover the entire environment in as little as 15 minutes. So it truly depends on what are your goals, and if your goals are an RTO of 0, you can actually accomplish that, but you've got to plan for it, and you've got to make sure that you invest the right dollars to accomplish those objectives. So, gone are the days when if a company is going to take, a month or 2 months to recover their data, that truly means they've not planned for losing the data in any way. They have not planned for any ransomware attacks in any way. They have not planned for that. They don't have a data strategy in place. That's the only reason it would take them a month to recover. If they plan for it, you can accomplish an RTO and RPO in 15 minutes. In fact, we're working with one of the large, we're going to work, at GSIs, India-based GSIs, which we can't name yet, which we will shortly, to actually have them have the ability to give their customers an RPO of zero and plan for it as a product.
And on top of it, if we talk about today's hybrid and multi-cloud architectures, which most organizations are using very rampantly now, how do they look? How do they look like, and how do they affect the data protection strategies of the organizations?
It's a great question, because most companies will have a multi-public cloud strategy. Most companies will have some element of a physical infrastructure for super sensitive workloads. Most companies are starting to actually have a significant, sprawl with a DevOps team on, container environments, which is, containers. You should think of containers as, like we've talked about virtualization for the physical infrastructure, containers is sort of, loosely your virtualization for applications. And so you have this diversity of how, companies' infrastructures are situated, and you need to have a plan for it. Now, number one, most companies historically would back up your infrastructure. I mean, you could have an SAP system, you could have Microsoft 365, you can still back it up. But to actually get to the Rolls Royce of how you do your data protection strategies correctly, you need to ideally have an ability to not just back up, your entire infrastructure horizontally, but also have your solution provider give you native backup capabilities for each of those workloads. And that's where I think we shine. So we feel that our backup solution is the best in the market. But on top of that, we are on an extremely aggressive pace to launch native backup and recovery strategies, backup and replication strategies by workload. Microsoft 365 is one of the fastest growing components of our portfolio. Same thing, we have native backup and replication solutions for all of the public clouds, AWS, GCP, Azure, and we are launching native backup solutions for Salesforce in the next month or so, and expect to see that roadmap satisfaction. Our NPS is 82, which I feel is like best. It's not just a benchmark; it actually is the undisputed best-in-class data I have seen on NPS for a company of our scale. We are pushing. We're gonna share our results shortly, but we are pushing, well into the, well above $1 billion mark in revenue and ARR. For a company our scale and size, an NPS of 82 is a dream, and that's where this approach we take, is truly resonating with the customers.
Great. Anand, you mentioned about native capabilities being built for all the public cloud service providers. You also mentioned about a SaaS provider, which is Salesforce. I'm intrigued to know that, are you going to extend this to the other large SaaS platforms as well?
Absolutely. I mean, Microsoft 365, Salesforce, and expect to see others. Absolutely expect to see others. Because at some point, and this is, you ask about what are the gaps, right, when companies have issues. One of the myths out there is, if I have a SaaS application, I don't need to do anything with it. The company which creates the SaaS app is going to be responsible for backing it up as well. And that's not entirely true. You need to have a data protection strategy in place anyway for it. And if you have the ability to back it up to a different infrastructure, the data to a different infrastructure, possibly a SaaS app runs on AWS, but you may want to back up based on your company philosophy the data to Azure and recover it back into AWS. So that ability, that cloud mobility and data mobility, which you need to have, is super key. And so that's where we've been on a journey. Our core product has been the best at what it does. But that's why you see a steady stream of native backups for SaaS applications, for container environments, for all aspects of how the infrastructure is in the modern day.
So finally, before I allow you to leave, you have been touring this part of the world for quite some time, and you are yet to finish your tour. What has been your experience talking to the customers and to your systems integrators, and especially how do you feel the India growth story is taking up?
Oh, it's been a fabulous journey so far. This is week 6 for me, I think, in my travels. So I spent a good bit of time in Europe. Now I'm in Asia. Spent some time in Mumbai. Now I'm in Bangalore. I'm excited about well, I mean, I've been in the US for 28 years, but still an Indian at heart. So, when I come here, this is where I want to see the flagship customers, start to come in. I'm extremely optimistic, for India Inc. I mean, the brand and the growth is already there for us to see. And my hope is that we can actually be an enabler for India Inc.'s, transformational journey, which is, still got a long way to go. The other thing which excites me about India is the GSIs here, the global systems integrators here, the services companies here. And this is where I think, we have the world's largest services companies here. And my goal, and this is where I'm also spending a bit of time, is to create meaningful and strategic partnerships. We partner with all of them. But my goal is to elevate the depth of the partnerships, to create strategic partnerships, so that collectively we can empower their customers, to go back to what I said, which is having, in a very precise and technical way, have an RTO and RPO of 0. But as I said, to make sure they have the confidence that they can run their business 24/7 without any interruptions, no matter what the.
And Ishwaran talking about the criticality of data management in today's business environment and how some of the best practices which he discussed can provide CIOs and the CTOs the necessary playbook to safeguard their data assets. Thank you, Anand, for talking to ISMG.